Just because it's old doesn't make it vintage. Hey everybody, Jace Allen here. Welcome back to the channel. So a little while ago I did a video on the PV Patriot Stratocaster style guitar. That video was called USA Made Vintage Guitar for Under $500. And somebody commented, 1986 is not vintage in any way. I know we use vintage a lot to describe older guitars that have a lot of value to them. But actually, the origin of the word vintage comes from winemaking. One of the definitions of vintage is the year or place in which wine, especially wine of high quality, was produced. The origin of the word vintage was adapted from the Old French vintage, wine harvest, and also derived from the Latin vendimia, or grape gathering. So I don't know how that word got used to be associated with old things of value, like a vintage painting or a vintage car or a vintage guitar for that matter. So anyway, here's another not so vintage guitar. This is a Harmony Stratocaster style guitar. I got this off of Goodwill auctions, of course, and I'm not sure of the year of this one. It doesn't have a serial number on it. It says it was made in Taiwan, and it does have a model number. This is a Harmony H80T MHU. It's got a really nice Olympic white finish on it that's actually kind of yellowed a little bit. You can see how the pickup covers and knobs have yellowed because they're sort of lighter white down where they're underneath the pick guard. And so I just thought it was an interesting guitar for a few reasons. And so I got it. The total price with shipping and handling was $118.08. Shipping was a little high on it. I usually don't buy guitars off of Goodwill if the shipping is much more than, say, $20. A lot of times it's like $12 or $15 for a guitar, and I think that's a pretty good deal. This particular guitar, the shipping on it was $36, but it was such a unique guitar and in such good condition that I couldn't pass it up. And so the actual total of the guitar was $66, and then they add on tax, shipping, and then they throw a charge on for handling that was $12. So one of the things that I thought was interesting about this that made me want to buy it was the headstock. This is sort of a typical Harmony headstock. Well, I did a review on a cheap Amazon guitar a little while ago called the Auriga, and that is a Stratocaster style guitar, and that has a headstock very reminiscent of the old Harmonies, and I wanted to kind of compare the two. So here is the Auriga, and this is the Harmony guitar, and as you can see by the headstocks on these guitars, the Auriga was definitely inspired by the headstock on the Harmony. There's a few minor differences, but it's pretty close to being the same. So that was one of the details that I wanted to check on. And then the other, I just kind of like this look, the tortoiseshell pickguard on the Olympic white. And then I'm getting ready to do a video series on sort of old guitar technology, pedals, guitars, early home recording technology on computer, and so this kind of fits with that. So let's check out the specs on this guitar and then play it and see how it sounds. Okay, so this guitar, the neck is maple, fretboard's maple. It's got a gloss finish on it. It's got the pyramid style tuners on it. These are actually pretty decent tuners for being those sort of old style tuners. The body on it, I think, it's either pine or basswood with a thin, probably mahogany laminate on the top of it. to give it, I don't know, to maybe smooth it out or whatever they do. But it's definitely a laminate. You can see it. But it doesn't look like it's plywood. It looks like it's solid wood inside, but it's definitely like a pine or a basswood. It's really light. Let's see. This is a full 1 3/4 inch thick body. It's a 1 5/8 inch nut width, and it's a 25.5 inch scale length. So these are standard sort of Fender Stratocaster specs. It's got 3 single coils, 5-way switch, volume, tone, tone, and a tremolo bridge with the small block. And then the back plate, a couple string trees there, and these are actually pretty decent strap buttons there. I like those. Those aren't too bad. And let's see what else. Tortoiseshell pickguard. This one's missing some screws. This actually looks like it might be an aftermarket pickguard because the holes here don't have a corresponding hole underneath, and they didn't bother to put the screws in. So maybe these aren't stock pickups, or it's just not a stock pickguard. So that's kind of interesting. And then one thing that I noticed, the nut on it is cut really well. I'm not sure what it is, if it's plastic or bone, but the action on it, I think the neck is pretty straight. Let's take a look at that first. So yeah, the neck is really straight, but the strings are going up as they get farther towards the bridge, but the bridge is not very high. These little Allen screws in the bridge are actually sticking up quite a ways. So that kind of leads me to believe that the neck itself needs to be shimmed so that the action here is kind of equal to the action here, because the action for the first maybe 5 frets is really nice. But then once you get down here, it's really super high. At the 12th fret, we're looking at, holy cow, I'd say 3 millimeters. That is super high. And these saddles are kind of funky. I don't know. They're cast saddles, but they're kind of goofy looking. And then you just got your regular jack, 1/4 inch jack cup there. I'm assuming this neck has a truss rod in it, but it must be accessible from back here because, as you can see, there's no truss rod access at the top. So this is probably something I'm going to pull apart later and maybe check it out to see what's going on underneath. But for right now, I'm going to tune it up and play it and see how it sounds and wrap this video up, and then we can talk about some of the more specifics in a later video. Okay, so I'm using my X-Vive, I think these are the A58 wireless guitar control, wireless guitar system there that I reviewed a little while ago. Here we go, got it all tuned up and ready to go. I usually go through a reaper session when I'm recording guitars for demonstration, and I'm going through the Tone Lib GFX plugin because it's way easier than setting up an amplifier and setting up microphones and all that stuff to record through an amplifier. So check the intonation on it, and the intonation is off a little bit on a few strings. I'm not going to mess with that right now, simply for time's sake. So we'll just kind of play it as it is. It doesn't sound too bad. So this is on a super clean setting on the Tone Lib. This is called Crystal Clean. The amp model is a Roland Jazz chorus amplifier, and so it's pretty clean, but these pickups I think are a little hot because they're kind of overdriving this this amp. So let me see if I can get there. That's a little better. The gain was up a little high on it, so we'll turn the gain down. Okay, so that's the bridge pickup. That's the bridge and middle. And then here we have the middle. I'm really impressed with the tone on this. And then this is middle and neck pickup. Strings are really high down here, so it makes it difficult to play. Bridge or neck pickup. Yeah, it's nice, got great tone. So I'm really curious about the age of this guitar, so I put in a Harmony H80T into reverb search. I don't see one that has the Olympic white finish, and I don't think this was repainted because there's some nicks here, and the paint's not really super thick like you see on some of the Fender Stratocasters, where I call it the candy coating. It's not really super thick, so I'm assuming this was the original paint job. So these you can tell, see they're really yellowed. So this is 80s, 1980s, 1980, 1990s, 1980s Pro setup. So it looks like the value of them is pretty good. I said I got this one for $118.08, and these are all listed for well over 150 bucks. And since they don't have any serial numbers on them, it's really kind of hard to pinpoint when this guitar was kind of born, but I'm guessing it's the 80s. So anyway, let's just throw a couple more tones on here and see how it sounds. And that's that was the neck pickup. This is the middle pickup. Neck or middle and bridge. So that sounds pretty good for a potentially 40-year-old guitar. So anyway, that's the Harmony H80T. Really neat guitar. If you happen to come across these, you can usually get them fairly inexpensively. Some of them are really beat up though. I had one before. I don't know if it was the 80T model. The neck was completely twisted on it. I don't think that one had the gloss, the high gloss finish on the neck. So maybe it was a completely different model, but you got to really kind of be careful when you're buying these super old guitars. But this one, neck is perfectly straight. The frets on it are actually, there's a little bit of wear on them, a little bit of indentation on them, but they're not super tall frets either. So I really like guitars that don't have super tall frets on it. And this neck is really well made. Like I said, I think I'm going to take it apart and check it out and see what's under the hood. So anyway, thanks for indulging my curiosity on this old guitar here. And Jace Allen for Jace Allen Guitar, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.